My name is Alex, and I am starting a little book review series for a class, a graduate class for my library science program. I will be reviewing 5 young adult novels that I read throughout the semester. One of them is considered new adult, but we will get to that in the video I make for that specific book. So anyway, let's get to it. So the first book I chose to review is We Are Okay by Nina LaCour. It won multiple awards, including the Pritz Award in 2018. The book was published in 2017. Personally, what led me to pick this book to review is that when I first read it, I didn't know if I was going to like it. And for me personally, good characterization and good plot that is not too slow of pacing, but also not too fast that I can't keep up with it is important. It's very hard for me personally to describe kind of where in the middle of all that I fall in terms of preferences, mainly because I don't really enjoy books with a lot of extremes. I tend to not enjoy books that are way too descriptive and character oriented with little action, or books that are way too action oriented with little character focus. And same with a lot of other elements. I definitely am someone that likes books that have a lot of different things together done in a way that makes sense. And I think this is one of those books. So, for those of you who don't know what the book is about, the book is about 18-year-old Marin, who is in her, Marin. She goes by Marin. I always pronounce it Marin in my head, and I'm really trying to pronounce it Marin because that's how in the book she says that her name is pronounced. But anyways, 18-year-old Marin goes off to college, and at the beginning of the book, we already meet her at college. We meet her when she's in college, and her roommate Hannah just left for Christmas break, and she's staying in the dorms for the winter. At this point, as we read in the synopsis, we are already curious about why Marin is over here at this college by herself and why she appears to not have any family to go back to from break. And I think that this question, along with the question the synopsis gave me of why her best friend goes all the way there, her best friend Mabel, to see her, and why that is such a big event, those things made me wonder who is Marin's family? Where did she move from? Turns out she moved from California to New York. I am not going to give spoilers as to what happened to her grandfather, who she lived with. But long story short, he is not in the picture anymore. That might be a spoiler, but I have to kind of explain it for the purpose of the book review, even though I won't go into too much detail about what happened to her grandfather. Anyways, Marin is in college, and her best friend Mabel from California, where she used to live, comes to see her. Turns out that Marin has not been replying to Mabel's messages for multiple months and has been ignoring her. And at the beginning, when we see Mabel come see Marin, I personally was wondering, there has to be more to their friendship, right? So it turns out I was right. They had some type of situationship, or like a kind of romance the summer prior to Marin leaving for college. Um, Mabel herself also went to college, but she was definitely still interested in keeping in touch with Marin. But essentially, Marin had ignored Mabel for multiple months. We don't find out until later in the book that they were involved. We don't find out until later what happened to Marin's grandfather, who was her primary caretaker. That's who she lived with. we don't really find out much details about those things until later in the book. However, there is one thing that I really did enjoy about the book, that about how it was formatted, that a lot of books do, but very few books can pull it off very well, because I feel like to be able to do flashbacks accurately, they have to have some kind of consistency. I've read some books that have flashbacks and flash forwards that are not necessarily consistent with the setup of the book. And this book, I think, did it really well. The flashbacks were all in a particular order in the same time frame. They didn't stray too far apart. And the present current day narrative was all in the same specific time period. So I thought that was very helpful for me to read and understand the book better. Um, what I mean by time period is just the present day was told in those 3 days that Mabel spends with Marin at her college dorm, where we figure out um, kind of what happened in their friendship. We are also at the same time in alternating chapters, though, getting flashbacks to the prior May through August before they went off to college to see what happened in those months that led them to have their friendship get a little messed up, for lack of a better word. I think it's definitely the kind of book that the synopsis is very vague and doesn't really do justice to what the book is actually about. I definitely enjoyed the book way more than I thought I would. It is definitely a book for, I would say, 16 to 18-year-olds around there. That would be the demographic that would relate the most to it, since it's close to the age that the characters are in the book. The book, like I mentioned, also has LGBT elements, and that is definitely something to keep in mind when you're reading the book. If you if you want to read a book that has strong female characters who are not straight, this would be a good book to read. Also, the book doesn't completely center around sexuality. It delves into other topics such as loss and friendship and just love in general, and what it means to love someone, knowing someone, and what it means to know someone. It also delves a little bit into mental illness, although it's not explicitly suggested and not explicitly labeled. It does talk a little bit about the depression that could come about from loss and the erratic behaviors that people can do. I don't really want to spoil anything about the book, but those are just some themes, like just in general. I wanted to mention really the theme of loss and death, because just to give a trigger warning, death of a family member, in case anybody finds that too sensitive. But there's nothing really wrong with that. It's just some people find those things kind of sensitive. If we're talking about the characters and the more technical elements of the book, personally, I'm not the best at discussing what makes a book good in terms of like diction and that kind of stuff. Personally, I felt like it was told in a tone and voice that is applicable and understandable by young adults and teenagers. I thought the characters were well developed. Definitely the character of Mabel, I would have liked to see more of her. However, I understand why, since we are hearing the story from Marin's point of view, I understand why Mabel could not be the center of the book. Also, that I understand why some of the other characters, like Mabel's family, couldn't be more of central characters in the storyline due to Marin being the one telling the story. One final note I want to mention is that if you enjoy books in first person, I would definitely suggest reading it as well. I personally enjoy books in first person more, so that's mainly why I'm mentioning it. I know there's some people who also don't really enjoy third person. I'm one of those people. I enjoy first person books more. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. I hope you watch the rest of my reviews.